Hello everyone, my name is Rose Thika. I'm starting a conversation series around shaping the Africa that we want. Today I'm joined by Teddy Onserio. Teddy is currently an Africa investment advisor to the United States International Development Finance Corporation. He is also a founder at Haba Capital, an investment company that is harnessing the collective power of small investments to propel businesses in Africa. Welcome to the show, Teddy.
Thanks, Rose. I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had a mutual friend on in a prior episode, Diana, and I was just mentioning to her that it's such an honor and treasure to be friends with younger people like you, because I always feel like you broaden my perspective on things and you're always challenging the boundaries. So I'm hoping that today we can get into a little bit of your story and understand how you got to where you are today.
Cool, I'm excited. Yeah. And Diana is actually a close friend and also a partner, so excited that you were also able to interview her as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
Thank you. So Teddy, tell us a little bit about your childhood. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Nakuru. That's where I was born and raised. And I studied in Nakuru for my primary school before I went to Kapsabet Boys for high school. It's now Kapsabet High. I remember I missed Alliance by 2 points and I was really devastated. Nakuru is a very competitive county. At that time, I think it was province or district. So I went to Kapsabet, and one thing my dad told me that was, it rang true was just list all your friends who went to Alliance, and 4 years later, let's just check how it compares. And Kapsabet was formative for me because I was able to come into being as an adult and just also be independent, away from family, and build a life, in a very new environment, not knowing people, new culture, because it was predominantly Kalenjin at that time. And I was Kisi, and it was a provincial school, so not national yet. So after that is when I completed my KCSE, and I was called to study medicine at the University of Nairobi. And during that 1.5 gap year, I decided to visit some hospitals and just get used to what it would be like being a doctor. And I could not handle it, seeing a patient bleeding over there, another one crying, yelling over there. I just could not take it, and so I started looking for an alternative. And I called UON trying to change to cultural science or other courses. It became difficult, and I also started applying abroad. And so I, starting to learn what the SATs were, taking the SATs. And eventually, I was lucky to get into Williams College. So that's basically how I grew up, and up until when I went to the States.
Wow, amazing. So how did you even have studying in the US? Like how was that world opened up to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. And we are always limited by what we can imagine, right? And back in Kapsabet, most of the people, first of all, very few people who had gone abroad. People who had made it to go abroad would usually have gone maybe via a track scholarship, and they were not. It wasn't a thing, It's not as obvious maybe as being an alliance where 20, 30 people went to these schools last year, and this is the process. That was not the case for me. So coming from Nakuru as well, I had friends who had gone to the national schools, and that's when they were in the process of figuring out how to go. Most formative for me was a friend who was attending a prep program called KENSAP. So she was able to be giving me guidance on this is how you craft your essay, or this is the process. You have to do the SAT, and then you have to apply, and then you have to do this and that. So that is how I was able to even know what to do. And then in terms of even knowing where to go, that was a challenge. So all I did was Google best colleges in America. Williams College is a top liberal arts and science college, so it was in the list. And the next Google search was best colleges, best need-blind colleges for international students, because there's nowhere I was going if there's no money. So Williams College was top, and some other schools as well. But what sold me to Williams was when I was reading their website, they said that they would have a free flight home for international students every year. So I said, bam, this is my insurance policy, So if I go, it doesn't work out, I don't like it, then I just come back home after the first year, then go do this medicine thing, you know. So that's how I eventually ended up deciding to go to Williams. It was really a gamble, but ended up paying off big time.
Amazing. So what was life at Williams like for a kid from Nakuru?
Wow, it was quite an adjustment, and I think coming from an environment where I had no prep at all as to what to expect in the US, Williams was a perfect landing spot. So Williams is a small, tight-knit community. The whole college is about 2,000 students, and it's tucked in the middle of nowhere in the Berkshire Mountains, you know, in Massachusetts. So Williamstown, the town is the school, and the school is the town. It's very small. It's very tight-knit. So things that worked for me was that, one, there was a lot of resources per student at Williams, and therefore whenever I needed anything, I would be able to talk to an administrator, and they would be able to make it happen. Second was also the fact that it's a small, community. You know everyone. The professor knows me. Like the president of the college would know you. The international student dean, would know us by name and be checking up on us, inviting us to their homes, etc. So if I went to a large state school where we have 20,000 students or something, I feel like I could get lost. So that helped me in terms of just acclimatizing to what being the US is. Academically was also a challenge. I mean, I'm coming from an 844 system where you sit and listen. It's one-way instruction, right? And now I sit in class there, and sometimes it's even a math class, and the professor's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what do I think?" You are the professor, you tell us what we're supposed to be learning. So it was also a shift, and also writing is also key, and so I had to write a lot, papers and all that. So I think the first semester was really a lot about acclimatizing the weather. I remember the first time it snowed was October 20th, 2010. That was the first time I saw snow. It was very cold, and Massachusetts is brutal. So that was tough, but again, you just get used to it. By second semester, I think I was up and running. I was in campus politics. I was basically now in it.
The full Teddy.
Yeah, I was now back into my element.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so you're back in your element as Teddy. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to graduation. How did you decide what career path to follow?
Yeah, so that decision actually starts way before graduation, right?
Awesome.
It starts from what you decide to do with your first summer of your first year on campus. It's also based on what you decide to study, right? So for me, coming from a background where I loved business, I loved math, I decided to focus on economics. I majored in economics. And in my second year, I saw a poster on campus. It was an internship advertisement at JP Morgan investment bank. And one of my buddies, his name is James, had interned there, I think a summer or two before. So he really encouraged me to apply. In fact, I think my application was about 10 minutes late, that closed the system. Anyway, so I applied. I did not know what it was, but eventually you learn, you prep, and I was able to get the internship for my second year summer. And that was now my opening now into the corporate world. It was, coming at a very high level. I would say I was fortunate because JP Morgan is a great bank. I would say the best bank. And that also taught me what it is like now to work in America and to earn money in America and to live in New York City. That's one of the biggest cities you can live in if you're in finance as well. So after that, I was able to get a return offer for my summer of my third year, and after that I was able to get a full-time offer when I graduated. So that's eventually how I launched my career in finance and investment banking in particular in New York.
Amazing. So what was it like at JP Morgan?
Wow, that was another learning curve, and quite a steep one, I would say, the steepest I've had in my life so far. Because, in America, people may not be the best sometimes, but you will never beat them at practice. They will if it's a simple interview, they will practice to a T. They will ensure that they're really, really sharp, Whereas here, sometimes you may just say, you think you're the best, and therefore, it's just another exam, you just go in, or it's just another interview, you just go in, There, it's just the practice. You cannot take that away from, the culture there. So in New York, I had done 2 internships at the bank, and I'm starting, and I came in, and I know that if you're given a task, you can deliver on it. But there's small nuances that applies not just in corporate America, but in corporate life elsewhere that I missed. And an example is, for example, you're working on a pitch deck that is going to a client, right? One analyst can work on the pitch deck and email it to the associate, your senior. Second analyst can work on the pitch deck, email it to the associate, print a copy, and leave it on the associate's desk. Maybe the third analyst can work on the pitch deck, email it to the associate, print a copy, leave it on the desk. But in that email, they'll say, this was a really exciting task. By the way, maybe we could consider adding XYZ. Oh, I don't know why we are mentioning this. Should we not do XY? Like just engage the material. Same deck, 3 different people, but one of them will get A++, and the other one will just be okay, And being a very cutthroat and competitive environment, these are some of the things that differentiate you as analysts, and those are not things that I was aware of, right? For me, I just thought we're here, we're doing work, the work is done, and we're good, And so after the first year, I was able to learn that there's a lot more that goes, into it beyond just your intellectual or analytical input. In my second year, I think I had a very fantastic boss. Her name was Ray, and she was able to coach me. And my second year, just knocked it off the park, and it became better after that. So it was a hard start, let me say, but it ended up teaching me a lot about corporate America and the corporate world in general.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice for young people in their careers. I think even for myself, looking back, I had the same struggles of not really understanding what the measurement level, like what were you measuring me on? But then I think if you look at yourself against your peers in those settings, most of those are, multi-generational bankers,
Absolutely.
Consultants, etc.
Yeah.
And so this is like the dinner conversation at home.
Yep.
And here you are, it's like I'm first generation, like American or like graduate of college. Like I was raised by a single mom,
Exactly.
who hustled her way. And you end up in this context where you're like, oh, is that what you guys are doing? When you send the deck, you actually like give your input, and it's also layered in our education system in Kenya as well.
Exactly.
So I think I do see a difference with the young folk coming through. I think they're a lot more vocal when given the space.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm passionate about speaking to students who are also in these positions. The program KenSAP, which I got help from indirectly. I'm a significant volunteer there, so whenever they have their reunions, I'm always keen to tell them, guys, this is corporate world. It's not. it's a dog-eat dog. You have to actually, send yourself and do more. Immerse yourself completely and do more. If you think you've done it, add more. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's great advice. Okay, and so walk us through, I guess, your career from JP Morgan to where you are today.
Yeah, so after about 2.5, 3 years at JP Morgan, I was really thinking, I wanted to come back to Nairobi, to Kenya. I was also thinking about going to school, maybe. I just felt like I needed a change. I love the environment, I love the experience, and it was a high pressure environment where there's high highs and low lows. And I was looking for something more like a balance, but also more importantly, because work wasn't the problem for me, or the hours was the problem, but for me I was looking for something that would be angling me towards the African continent. So even if maybe it's the same hours, but at least I'm working on clientele who are in Africa, or building relationships with people who would be in Africa, because that's where I would see myself long term, and I wanted to get a role that would angle me towards that. So as I was just looking passively, I met different people, and I bumped into this opportunity now at the Open Society Foundations. It's one of the largest private foundations, and they had an impact investing arm of it. So it was called the Soros Economic Development Fund. So I got an opportunity to join them. I was going to still be based in New York, but I would still have, in fact, majority of my work was to make investments and the African continent, in different mandates. So I joined them and stayed there for another, say, 3 years or so, which was great because now I used to travel home, and meet different stakeholders, whether it's potential investees, whether it's government representatives, whether it's other similar or like-minded investors, and I would bring my team along as well. So, it would be me basically showing them around or curating our trip schedules, and I learned a lot. That gave me a window into what it is like maybe working here or starting a business here or doing a deal on the continent. That was great. And so after 3 years there, just before the pandemic hit, I was thinking about making a transition, and actually had many interviews here in Nairobi, and then COVID hit, so that process stalled. And given I was ready, I was just continuing to look passively. Also thought about going to school again, but whenever you're ready, just an opportunity comes and you strike while it's hot. That's what happened in July. This opportunity that came through, and from the moment I sent in my application to when I signed it was 3 weeks total.
Wow.
Which
record time in that
is a lot, yeah. So now I work for I'm a contractor to the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, short DFC. That's the U.S. government's development bank. So this major, economies normally have a private agency that invests in private deals in developing countries usually. So the US we have DFC, the UK they have what is called CTC, the French have propel, Netherlands has FMO, etc. So for the DFC, previously it used to be called OPIC, Overseas Private Investment Company, and when OPIC was transitioned into the DFC, major changes happened, and the US was trying to do more and be a stronger player as far as private investments is concerned in Africa. So in addition to adding more capital, capital base was doubled, and reducing hurdles that existed before, like we could only invest in American-owned businesses. That's no longer the case. So DFC is looking to really step up, and Africa is a key continent. To give you perspective, there's just about, say, 10 employees who are outside the headquarters globally, and about 6 or so are in Africa. So we were recruited to assist the DFC in this mandate of just deploying more capital and becoming a more engaged player on the continent. I cover East Africa, and I have colleagues who are covering other regions in Africa. So I source transactions, pre-screen them, write memos to go to my colleagues in DC, and conduct due diligence and any other function that happens along the investment process as requested, in addition to just being the general point of contact for the DFC in East Africa.
Amazing. So for people in the audience who are entrepreneurs, I think it would be helpful to highlight some of the sectors that the DFC is looking to invest in, businesses at what scale, just some tidbits on your priority sectors that you're looking at.
Sure, yeah. The DFC invests in many other sectors except those that are prohibited. So we are very flexible. However, we launched our inaugural development strategy around October 2020. And here we highlighted some sectors which we have deemed to be sectors that could have the most impact, our capital could have the most impact. There's about 6 of them. That's energy. We've done a lot in energy in the past, but right now we're also really focused on renewable energy. But that's one of them. Then the other one is infrastructure. So, and infrastructure is the physical infrastructure, roads, ports, etc. But it's also, right now our focus is also ICT. So can you do data centers, can you do towers, etc. We also have financial inclusion. We worked with bank and unbanked institutions to ensure that capital is reaching those that are marginalized. We have healthcare. That's a key focus for us at the moment, especially just ensuring access to healthcare facilities where there's no access, and also bolstering manufacturing of critical healthcare inputs such as vaccines in Africa.
Like COVID response.
Exactly, COVID response is huge with that as well. You may have seen that we were part of a consortium that funded, this South African deal to ensure that we can have production capacity here. And then we have water sanitation, and hygiene. So those are some of the sectors that we have highlighted as being key. But again, we are open to all sectors as long as we can have a case for economic development and basically and not also hurt foreign policy element of it. At the end of the day, we are a government-owned agency, so we have to pay attention to that. All this is available on our website, so if anyone is interested, they can just go to dfc.gov, and they can see an eligibility criteria over there, including ticket sizes and all that. And my contacts are also publicly available, so you can also be welcome to reach out.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I think just hearing your story and thinking about your career to date, and the level of impact that you have even at the DFC, being in the room and to be able to influence the decisions around investment on the continent is really admirable, Teddy. And I know it hasn't come easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging. It's certainly certainly a lot of responsibility, and I really take it. So I approach the work with that level of seriousness and focus. And it's been great to be able to participate in that investment decision and to actually see that my input is really valued by the decision-making organs, in DC. So it's great, and I'm keen to also ensure that capital is getting to people who may otherwise not have gotten it, not because their business is not good, but maybe because they just did not put their deck in this particular way or that way, just ensuring that these artificial hurdles, let me call it, are removed, and as long as the core of the business is great and the fundamentals are good, you stand a fair shot at accessing capital from the DSC, because that's my role. It's just preparing you to ensure that you're best prepared to, for evaluation, with the investment teams in DC.
Okay. So maybe now we can transition into talking a little bit about Haba. What problem are you trying to solve when you founded Haba?
Yeah, this is a very passionate, I'd say, project of mine. And when you're sitting in New York and you're trying to make an investment back home or wherever outside, there's very limited options. Normally, the first option that will come will be recommendations from your dad, mom, uncle, like buy this plot of land, or build here, or buy this apartment. So those were the limitations that existed. And for me, I used to be quite savvy, I would say, in terms of making businesses or making investments since I was in high school. Actually, I remember my high school nickname was Kamlesh. I don't know if that was a good thing.
You said Kamlesh?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Because he used those.
Reference to Patni.
But anyways, that is what we're trying to do. So it's just when I was making these investments and a friend would hear about it, they'd always be like, "Oh, that sounds cool. Here's some cash. Why don't you invest on my behalf? Why don't you invest on my behalf?" So when we finished, we graduated, and now we are working. Quickly realized we have quite a lot of money invested, and all of it is in my name. That's a lot of trust, It's about $100,000 and all in my name, and it's people's money. So I decided to register an entity, and then we will just continue investing now more formally. And over time now, Haba has evolved. Different people have just come on board, and what I would describe it as is just a platform where you, as a young professional, whether you're abroad or whether you're local, you're looking for investment opportunities, and especially opportunities where you support businesses, and not just financially or in monetary terms, but also in terms of your expertise. You can be able to get that. Also, it's a community of really skilled professionals working in the biggest organizations you can think of. you name it, I think we have it. And sometimes before COVID, we tried to foster a community where these people can meet, not only meet other investors, but also meet the entrepreneurs. And we hope that we will continue doing that. So it's just a platform that gives you alternative investment opportunities, and mainly focused in supporting businesses back home. And the name Haba Capital, it's pretty much derived from the saying Haba na Haba hujaza kibaba, and that is twofold. One is, you as Rose, you may have $5,000, or you may want to invest somewhere. Somebody else may just have $1,000. Another person could have $10,000. Now, a lot of good deals that move around here are usually limited to let's say sophisticated investors, and the minimum is always, say, $20,000 or $10,000, or even $50,000. So alone you may not be able to access that opportunity, but if you all come together, then all of a sudden you can give yours, the other person can give their input, and you can now afford to make this minimum investment of whatever the minimum is. And also, because you're together, you can go now to access more premium investment opportunities. I totally believe you need money to make money, and money will always flow among people who have money. Like, investment opportunities will always flow among people who have money. So at least now we're in the game. Now we're getting access to things we'll never get access to. Like, an investment bank here in Nairobi is not calling you as Rose. They're calling somebody else who has more money, say, hey, here's the deal, are you interested? So now we have access to those opportunities. That's the first angle. The second angle is just the compounding effect. You may have small money today. Yeah, don't think it's too small. Just put it in, invest, get a little bit more, just keep it and be consistent. That consistency is what will is what will yield this compounding effect, and eventually, you all can grow together. That's why we always say we're just trying to harness the collective power of small investments to propel, different businesses here in Africa.
So how much or how little can I invest in Haba?
That has varied, and what we do is that we collect investment commitments depending on the particular transaction.
Okay.
Right now, we usually what we do is not necessarily limit what you can put in a particular deal. We just say that overall we want your portfolio to be at a certain level. I have even students who are investors in Haba, and I have people who are several years into the work culture. So the short answer to your question is, normally it's a question of your full portfolio and not necessarily your individual investment. And there's also no timeline as to when you have to reach a certain number. So I have people who have it. I would say the minimum, the ideal minimum would be about $1,000 per particular investment. And then the aggregate minimum, like all your investments via Haba, that will vary now depending on what the person wants. But also there's no limit, because what we've been doing is building trust. It's building a track record. So I wouldn't tell you that you need to put in $10,000, because you may put in the first 1,000 and then like, I know what, I don't like this people. So I guide you, I guide you to a particular target, and then it's up to you to decide whether you'll get there ever or not.
That's actually a really good concept for people that may be skeptical and want to see, your governance structures, how you approach deals. So I think that's a really good model.
Yeah, it is, and
get to pop under the hood before you write the big check.
Absolutely, and there's people who have expressed interest, but they never get to invest. They're always in the fold. They get our updates, they get our reports, and eventually I've seen people who have been with us 3 years, and eventually they're like, oh, you know what, I now want to put in some cash. So different people have different risk appetites, and they have different requirements for what they need as far as due diligence is concerned. And we are open to all that. If you worked hard for your money, nobody should really tell you or coerce you into doing anything. So hopefully we can be able to eventually grow and ramp up so that we can we can have capacity to take on even more and more investors on board.
And so how much has Haba deployed capital-wise to date?
We've deployed close to $1 million to date. Yeah.
Teddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, keep it up. And I'm sure that $1 million has made significant impact on those businesses that you've invested in.
Absolutely, I think that's the biggest reward for us. It's not even the money, really. It's listening to the entrepreneurs and hearing what that 1 hour phone call a month meant to them and how it changed their trajectory and even the capital, how it enabled them to grow or to meet their needs here and there. So it's been a very organic growth. I don't think we've ever marketed it. I think this may be the first interview where I'm talking about we hope to continue. We've been building it on the fly as well. So we hope to formalize we've done a lot of the formalization, but we hope to continue improving on that before we can even now go out and say, okay, here's who we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so do I have to be in Kenya to invest? Or?
No. I think I have investors who are in Lesotho, Botswana, Dublin, South Africa, US, UK, Scotland. So it's really diverse. Okay. And in Kenya as well. Did I mention Kenya? Yeah, we have a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So Teddy, what advice would you give to young people who are early in their career?
I would say one thing maybe when I did not do well, which I would advise them, is to kind of plan out where you see yourself in the next 3 years, 5 years. Don't just fall into the motions, waking up 8 a.m., going to the office at 9, leaving late, and that's it. Think about what you want for yourself and how the particular job you're doing is helping you get to where you want to get to, in those 5 years, 10 years, 20s. If you want to go to school, maybe, a journey of going for an MBA in a top school, for example, starts years before. You have to do the exams and you have to pass and you have to think about who is recommending you. And then if you're in a job, you have to really warm up to whoever you want to be your recommender, so they'll write something nice, like this. You have to plan ahead. Second, I just say, what you have is what is going to get you what you want. So especially if you are in a situation where you may not like your job, careful, because if you don't do well, you're hurting your chances to getting what you may want later. So immerse yourself, give it your all, and even if it's something you may not like, give yourself a time and say, I'm here for 2 years. And those 2 years, ensure that you're giving it 110%. Remember, as I told you earlier, sometimes it's not that you had the best presentation or the best analysis. It's many other things that come with that. It's how you present this analysis. It's how you approach your customer, your client. It's how it's many other small things that you really cannot show up with a nice smile if you're not immersed in this particular thing that you're doing. So you really have to immerse yourself so that you're able to get the most out of your current opportunity. That's what I would say. And just don't, maybe the final thing I would say, networking. I think I have not mentioned how networking has been key in terms of, actually my last 2 roles, I would say. You really have to be out there, not just so that somebody can give you a job, but also so that you can know about what exists beyond your sphere of working. Don't just follow the crowds, just talk to people, and you never know where you may end up. And I feel like once you get your first job, usually big jobs recruit from colleges. Now your second job and your third, that's where now this networking becomes even more important, because now they are, you're competing with people who have papers just like you. Now it's a question of who can really vouch for you, and that's important. That's I have a lot to say. That's it.
I just, because sometimes networking can feel like a heavy word, right? So what does it mean for you? Is it maintaining relationships? Is it like cold emailing people on LinkedIn? Like, what is networking for you?
deep relationships rather than number of people who you know. And it's not a matter of, it's not knowing of you, it's knowing you, right? So it's not necessarily cold emailing people. I mean, if you need something and you cannot get through to someone, you can do that. But for me, if I go to a networking event, for example, I am overwhelmed with sometimes this setting, right? So all I would say is, you know what, I'm here for 1 hour. I just want to get away with two, three contacts. People who tomorrow they will know exactly who I was and they'll remember my story. So, you know, just move around and say, hi, you know, you start with the usual banter. Oh, if it's somebody who invited you to the event, oh, so how do you know XYZ, you know? Oh, yeah, it's a nice place, you know, just small talk, but eventually, you know, quickly go deep and ask them what, you know, what they do, tell them about what you do, and ensure that at the end of the night, those 2-3 people who you really you leached on, you know, they'll remember who you are. Right. Obviously, don't force yourself on someone. If the vibe is not good, you know, move to the next. Because there's so many people.
Know how to do it gracefully.
Exactly. So many people in this world. So just, you know, shoot your shot and ensure that you're doing, you're going deep rather than just saying hi to 15 people and nobody will remember exactly who you are. So that's what I would say about networking. And then it's also just, I don't do a good job at this, but I've seen some people who actually now periodically just shoot a note to somebody who you think you may want to maintain a relationship with, saying, hi, you know, I hope you're doing well. By the way, I moved jobs, now I'm at this place, I like it, you know, so I want to say hi, and that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's really good advice. So maybe now thinking about entrepreneurs, what advice would you give to young people looking to get into entrepreneurship?
I'm very passionate about just supporting entrepreneurs on the continent, and more so local entrepreneurs. I feel like we as a people shortchange ourselves a lot. We are trained to be humble. We are trained not to speak about our wins, not to speak about how good we are. And I think it's time we change that narrative. When it comes to entrepreneurs, few things. One, I would say, is formalize, corporatize and formalize your business as much as you can. Even if you're getting money from your father, your mother, your sister, just ensure that money for the business is money for the business. You have a separate account, you are writing down every expense, and you come and tell your dad, okay, 1 year is done, here's everything, here's how it worked out, etc., etc. I get surprised whenever we say all the time, oh, giving money to relatives, etc., you know, it's not good. It's just because, you know, I give money to my sister and then I never hear about it again. And by the way, people can always take bad news if, for example, you ventured into something and it failed, but only if it was communicated correctly and also on time, right? Because oftentimes people would invest the money and then, you know, that friend would disappear. You know, and that's now what is making people more skeptical about even putting more money into businesses. And guess what? Even if your business failed, if you were upfront, used to communicate, you know, this is what is going on, we're doing well, and then oops, things have gone bad. That investor would still be inclined to support you even further sometime down the line because it makes sense, you know. Then, in addition to corporatizing, is believe in yourself and believe in your product. Like, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing well. Like, your numbers may not be the best, but just believe in what you're doing, and then think beyond. This point 3 is tied to the second one. Think beyond 1 month, 2 months, 6 months. Say, you know what? Over the next 3 years, this is our target. We want to get to X number of customers. Like, quantify it, and then break it down into months or years, and ensure that the entire team is working towards that. Like, we cannot just move with this mentality of, just getting the next one customer. You know, we may get them, we may not get them, we don't know where we're working towards. You're moving without a target, you know, and so you need to have a target. This is 2021, we need to close by this. And then that target will trickle down to the salesperson, will trickle down to the finance person. You know, it will be an organization working together towards a particular goal. And I would say, when it comes to financing, also think beyond the banks. You know, there's other alternative forms of finances. There's a lot of agencies here providing grant capital. There's a lot of agencies providing, private debt, private credit. Sometimes could be cheaper than even what you get in a commercial bank. So, explore those. And then, final thing I guess I would say is don't be greedy. If you can get a partner on board who will really supplement where you are weak at, know yourself. If this accounting and formalization thing is not for you, for example, then find a partner who you can just put in the business who will just focus on that. Their role is just to ensure the systems are working, you're reporting on time, etc., and they're answering maybe investor questions. So get a partner who will complement where you're weak at. You'd better have a smaller portion of something that's working really, really well than a larger portion of something that's not working. And by the way, I've seen many sole entrepreneurs I've dealt with. Entrepreneurship is hard. You always want to quit. Those people, it's difficult to replenish your excitement and your zeal if you're just alone. So if you have a partner, usually that helps because you're kind of like in this together. So I'll stop there, but I think those are some of the pointers that I can give to the entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much, Teddy. That was amazing. And maybe just to go back on, your role at DFC and what you're doing at Haba. What advice would you give businesses that are looking for funding? Obviously, beyond what you've already articulated so well around entrepreneurship. Yeah.
I would say first for funding and I see this a lot, especially with local entrepreneurs. I'll reiterate, it's thinking long term. A foreigner would come to Kenya and they will draw up a plan over the next 5 years, and they will quantify what it takes to get to those 5 years, and they will say that this is how much capital we need, etc. And they will go out to the market and they will articulate this very, very coherently, and they will raise money. But for us, I think we struggle to really strategize beyond a very short time frame. So think long term. That's one. Second is don't fear to bring in partners who can, equity partners first, because we have a mentality where you've raised a family business. You don't want any partners. You just want to borrow. You just want to borrow. But sometimes you could be running a hospital, for example, right? You could bring a partner who has run chain of hospitals in West Africa, and that partner now can help you, strategically, not just financially. They're putting in their, years of experience to help this business now scale. And now this thing that you were fearing to sell because it's your family thing now has become so big, and even if you own just 20%, you're all set. So don't fear selling. I've seen this not just in Kenya and Rwanda, etc. Like family businesses, they've invested so much, it's big. They're struggling with cash, but they don't want to sell equity at all. They just want to load more debt. And you may end up losing your business because if you default, auctioneers are not, they'll be very quick to take it away. Exactly. So don't fear to get partners. And then also network. I mean, networking also happens because how do you know that I exist? Or how do you know that another agency exists and they give money? Like you have to, if you struggle with networking, attach yourself with an advisor, for example, a financial advisor or investment advisor who can be able to reach different pockets of capital, such as ourselves. An investment is like a marriage. You have to, you're a good business, and me, I'm a good funder, right? Or like have money, and there's many other people who have money. The question is not that. The question is, are we good for each other, right? Because different investors demand different things from the entrepreneurs. Some entrepreneurs will find some investors to be too demanding in terms of reporting. Others will find them to be too expensive in terms of the interest rate that they ask or the equity stake that they ask. Some would find others to be impatient because they want to invest today and they want their money out tomorrow. So you have to look at all these factors and see, am I getting the right partner on board? If you're looking for a patient investor, make sure you're getting a patient investor. If you're looking for an investor who you can grow with, aka now I need more money, they can give you more money, then you look for an investor who has deep pockets, So you need to also do your due diligence as far as who you're bringing on board. And don't let maybe one or two bad experiences with investors, dissuade you, because there's a lot of good investors out here. And it's just a question of finding the fit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think to your point about getting an advisor too, kind of play middleman on that journey and also help you articulate
Yes.
as an entrepreneur what kind of funding it is that you need based on the stage of your business.
Absolutely, and it also goes to say, like I said before, don't be selfish.
Right.
Pay that advisor 2%, but they'll get you the best deal.
Yeah.
But then you don't
Pay
want,
for
just want to
result.
do it by yourself.
Right.
Yeah, you know, it's gonna be tough.
Okay. There might be other people in the audience who are sitting here and thinking, how this talk about entrepreneurship? Like, I have a good corporate job. I'm happy. I'm well paid. You know, how can they be part of shaping the Africa that we want?
Yeah. Oftentimes, I mean, by the way, Kenya has a very good education system. We have very, very strong professionals. And I've met people from different countries, and Kenyans, we're good. I don't even think sometimes I see young, peers, and I'm like, damn, I'm half as smart as this person. But in life, one thing I believe very strongly: the best don't always win. Don't think that because you had the A+ that your life is set. No. I don't think because you have the C that your life is doomed. No. There's so many factors that come into play, and similar to this analogy, if you have the cushy job at KPMG because you're one of the top from college, don't think that's now your life is set. No. Think beyond your job. Ask yourself, what do you want for yourself, right? Do you see yourself as an entrepreneur? And how is your current job helping you to become that entrepreneur you want to become, right? And then don't fear to start. Don't fear to start, whether it's starting small or don't do this too much analysis. Analysis paralysis is real. It becomes too daunting if you start doing all that. Just start, and then you will cross each river as you get there, right? You cross those bridges when you get there. That's how we started with Haba Capital. It was always one of the things where I never thought maybe we'd get to a point when I'm thinking, this thing has grown too big and actually could even start employing people. It's true. But it's one of those things where you just start and move along. You learn, you iterate, and don't fear. Don't let your cushy job take away from what you really want to do. If you're young, and this now I'm speaking to the young people who've just started working, you have the first, say, 10 years of working to do anything you want to do. Like, experiment as much as you want, because once you get into your midlife and the later years, then it becomes difficult to take all those risks. So take them now. If they don't go well, you still have another many years to recover.
That's actually
course correct.
Yeah, absolutely. So Teddy, I always find you really wise beyond your years and always pushing the boundaries. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
That's flattering.
So where can people go to find you and follow you to continue to draw from the well of wisdom?
My name is Teddy Onserio, and I think I'm the only one. So
are you really?
You can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, Twitter.
We'll link to your profiles on each of those.
And check out our good work at the DFC.
Right.
We also have our platforms across the social medias and also at Haba Capital.
Okay.
We have our platform same at Haba Capital.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Rose. This was exciting, and looking forward to seeing future episodes as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys, I hope you learned as much as I did just talking to Teddy through his journey from Kenya to the US and back, and having foresight around your career, not being afraid to jump into entrepreneurship with what you have, and taking an active role in shaping the Africa you want, whether you are young in your career, established in your career, in a quote-unquote cushy job. There's always scope to make real impact on businesses on the continent, and I hope that's a key takeaway for all of you today.